You're boxing up your apartment on a Sunday night because the lease is up tomorrow, and your phone lights up with a text from your ex. They aren't texting to say goodbye. They're demanding half of the money in your savings account, claiming that because you lived together for exactly 7 years, you're legally married under something called common law. You drop the packing tape, staring at the screen and panicking, wondering if you're suddenly on the hook for years of joint debt. Let's clear the air right now. That whole 7-year rule is a complete myth. There's no magical counter ticking down in the background that suddenly binds you to another person just because you shared a mailbox for 84 months. You don't accidentally stumble into a marriage just by surviving a long relationship. Common law marriage is a very real legal concept, but it doesn't work the way your ex or your nosy aunt insists it does. And because states make their own rules for family law, whether this applies to you at all depends entirely on where you live. Most states have completely banned the idea, and a few only recognize it under extremely specific conditions. Today, we're going to walk through the actual steps of how a common law marriage gets legally recognized. We'll strip away the rumors, define the words the system uses, and figure out exactly what gives a relationship legal teeth. The very first move is looking at where you actually live. The law calls this jurisdiction, which simply means the specific state or county that has the legal power to make decisions about your life. If you never got a marriage license, your status depends entirely on the laws of the state where you currently reside. As an example, a state like Colorado does recognize common law marriages, while a state like Illinois absolutely doesn't. And to make things more complicated, if you lived in a state that allowed it when you moved in, but you just moved to a state that bans it, the new state will generally still respect your existing status. But you can't create a brand new common law marriage today in a state that has outlawed it. You've to figure out exactly which state controls your situation before you even worry about the rest of the details. The next phase is figuring out if you ever did the one thing that actually creates the legal bond. To form a common law marriage, you've to show clear intent. The law calls this capacity and present intent. Capacity means you're legally allowed to get married in the first place, meaning you're both over 18, of sound mind, and not already legally married to someone else. Present intent means you both openly agreed, right now, to be husband and wife. You can't just act married and hope the law catches up. You've to actively agree to it. If you never had that specific conversation, and you never agreed to be married, you aren't married. The third factor is proving you didn't just keep it a secret. The legal system demands what they call holding out. Holding out simply means you presented yourselves to the public as a married couple. You told the neighbors you were married. You filed your taxes jointly as a married couple. You put the other person on your health insurance as a legal spouse. You changed your last names. Living together for a decade, splitting the grocery bills, and sharing a pet doesn't equal holding out. The world at large has to look at you and treat you as married based on how you presented yourselves. If you always introduced each other as my girlfriend or my boyfriend, it's nearly impossible to prove you held yourselves out as anything else. The fourth element is checking the calendar and realizing the date doesn't matter. The amount of time you spent together is practically useless without the intent and the holding out. A couple could live together for exactly 3 days, have the clear intent, hold themselves out as married, and they might be legally wed. Meanwhile, a couple could live together for 40 years, strictly introduce themselves as partners, and never form a marriage in the eyes of the law. The 7-year myth likely started because 7 years is a long time to live with someone, and people started confusing long-term cohabitation with legal marriage. Cohabitation just means living together in the same house, and by itself, it gives you absolutely zero legal rights to a joint bank account. Time alone doesn't create the marriage. The final step in the process is understanding what happens when you actually meet the requirements. If you establish capacity, present intent, and held yourselves out as married in a state that allows it, you're legally married. And because you're legally married, getting out of it requires a formal divorce. You can't just pack a bag and walk away. If you decide to split up, you have to go to court, divide up your assets, and legally dissolve the marriage. If your ex wants half of your savings, they'll have to file for divorce and convince a judge that the marriage existed in the first place. If they can't prove you had the intent or held yourselves out as married, the judge will dismiss the case, and you walk away with your money intact. The law isn't always easy to understand, but you don't need a law degree to figure out what rights you've in your own home. When you know how the steps actually work, you can see right through the empty threats. Keep learning the playbook, keep protecting your peace, and keep yourself out of the crosshairs. How long did someone tell you the magic timeline was for becoming legally married, and did you actually believe it when you heard it? Drop your answer down in the comments. If this breakdown helped you cut through the rumors and learn how the rules of a relationship actually work, pass the video along to a friend who is sweating over a messy breakup right now. Make sure you subscribe to Scribble Law so you always know the actual rules of the game before someone tries to use the system against your wallet.